Hello everyone, welcome to the portrait photography tutorial and learn some practical and interesting portrait photography techniques. Before we get into the shooting, we have to do some necessary settings on the camera so that we can make sure we can take amazing portrait photos. But DSLR cameras have so many settings that it will take some time to fully understand them. So now we are focused mainly on some basic settings for portrait photography. The parameters for portraits are universal for almost all other photography scenarios. So if you get the settings done now, if there are no special needs, in the shooting process you don't need to spend too much time on the adjustment of parameters. So you can focus more on how to frame and compose. First, we can choose the aperture. Priority mode. Aperture priority mode is generally indicated as AV or A. It is the most commonly used to take portrait photos. In this mode, set your aperture to the maximum allowed by the lens, then it can cover the vast majority of photography scenes. About the concept and effect of aperture, we have introduced it in the previous course. You can refer to it. Aperture priority mode can quickly adjust the aperture according to our shooting needs. For example, the commonly used large aperture can bokeh the environment, highlighting photographed subject to make the photo look better. If you need the model and the background to be clear, it can quickly reduce the aperture for shooting. As you get more experienced, you will gradually understand the impact of aperture settings on your work and will be able to adjust your aperture settings accordingly. When taking portraits photos, we need to make sure that the model comes into focus, sometimes even the model's face or eyes, so that the portrait is more evocative. And in taking portraits, we often need the foreground bokeh and background bokeh techniques, which also require accurate focus. So generally we set the focus mode as single point autofocus. Of course, if there is a function like a face recognition focusing, it can also be more convenient. When taking photos when it is bright, we usually set ISO value to 100. If it is darker when taking photos indoors or at night, we generally set it to auto. It needs to be noted that currently, the camera has more and more powerful noise reduction functions. So most of the cameras can cope with the noise of images at ISO 1000. Automatic mode allows you to be more focused on shooting when the light varies a lot without being distracted to adjust these parameters. Of course, if you are using the flash or other equipment, the ISO can still be maintained at 100. Ways of using the flash will be introduced in later chapters. In addition, DSLR cameras generally provide us with two choices in color space. One is sRGB and the other is Adobe RGB. sRGB is the commonly used color space and the default mode of the camera. Adobe RGB has a wider color space and good color performance for commercial high-precision printing. Relatively speaking, we can just choose the color space of sRGB. In terms of storage mode and image quality, you can choose Fine and Maximum. If your memory card has sufficient capacity, you can set JPG plus CRAW format, which will be more helpful for later optimization. This part of the content will also be included in the optimization lesson for detailed explanation. For white balance, set it to automatic mode. Don't bother to know all those color parameters. With the rapid development of camera technology, the camera's automatic white balance is increasingly able to respond to complex environmental color temperature changes. Unless you need to get accurate color reproduction, for example, in commodity photography, you can trust the automatic white balance mode. For the metering mode, we can choose the matrix metering mode, which is generally also the default mode of the camera and is the most comprehensive metering mode. In this mode, the camera will take into account the readings from all metering areas to get a more balanced light measurement. Generally speaking, beginners in portrait photography tend to take photos in a soft light environment. It is more stable. Then for the rest of the myriad of parameters, we can leave them to the default modes. That's enough for most scenes of our photography. As we are getting more experienced, we have to consciously strengthen our understanding of these parameters and our ability to adjust them. Last but not least, understanding the equipment and parameter settings is only a small part of photography skills. To take great photos, it takes the photographer's understanding about the art, accumulation of experience, aesthetics of photography, and the perception of life.